Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood night. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on an October 3rd Thursday. The LA Galaxy victors over Colorado, a win at the Mile High State for the first time since 2017. 7 years, snapping a 13-game unbeaten streak for the Colorado Rapids. Who said it was going to be hard to play at altitude? Who said the LA Galaxy couldn't get a win in Colorado? And who said the LA Galaxy weren't just 4 points away from clinching that top spot in the Western Conference? We got a lot to talk about. Going to talk about the win over Colorado. Going to talk about what's coming up with Austin, and then all the news that's in between, all the stats that you need to get ready for what is Fan Appreciation Day on Saturday, and just 2 games remaining in the LA Galaxy's 2024 season. To help us do that, we're glad to have him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how are you doing, bud?
I'm feeling strong.
Yeah?
We're top of the West.
Yep.
Winning away on the road.
Yep.
Our lungs are expanding. We're made Colorado look out of gas.
Ooh.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really, really good.
You should. You should feel really good. The Galaxy fans should be. I mean, again, I tweeted it out, but I said this 2024 LA Galaxy team keeps trying to make a case for being one of the best LA Galaxy teams ever. They could break the record for most wins in the modern era for the LA Galaxy if they win the next 2 games, right? And by the way,
wild.
If they win the next 2 games, they would clinch that Western Conference. They don't need to win the next 2 games. They need 4 points. But if they win the next 2 games, they could set that record there as well. So, crazy times. LA Galaxy looking at staying undefeated at home on Saturday too. Eric, it's been a busy day. I feel like I've been driving all. You know what? I was visiting all the wonderful people of Los Angeles today, all over LA County, little Inland Empire, little San Dimas, little Vernon in there. I do have one shout out I have to give. It's always nice meeting G's in the wild, and I had to.
Were you at Wild Rivers? Is this where this happened?
I wish.
Every time I hear San Dimas, yeah.
It's that and Encino Man, right? Isn't that like that's those are the only
with Napoleon,
yeah,
going down the water slide.
Exactly, 100%. Again, we were just talking about how old we are. I'm sure there's some people who are like, I have no idea what movie they're talking about, which is, again, it's a travesty.
No, I'm thinking Bill and Ted.
Yeah, Bill and Ted.
Sorry.
Yeah,
okay,
Bill and Ted,
yes.
and then you know,
and Encino Man.
You go Encino Man there as well, right? Brendan Fraser in that, Pauly Shore in that one, right?
Classic, all-time classic.
Bill and Ted though was man, that was some good stuff. Anyway, I did run into a G in the wild, which is always fun. A little. So shout out to Alex, who was the branch manager at the bank I was making a deposit at. It's just awesome. It was always funny to run into some G's in there, but he was like, do you come in here a lot? I'm like, I maybe I was getting picked up. Didn't know I was in. It doesn't matter, you know. I'm down.
I was flattered.
And party on, dudes. See, somebody knows. And so I go, this is the first time I've ever been in this branch. He goes, oh, you look really familiar. I'm like, do you like soccer? He's like, you're Josh. I'm like, there you go. All right, we're in.
We made the connection there.
Yeah, which
awesome.
I would have felt really stupid if I wouldn't have been like, hey, do you like soccer? And he's like, no. Why would I, you know?
Well, I have similar story, not a G in the wild, but a wrestler in the wild that I encountered on Saturday. Again, same but different.
Right.
And shout out, I think Alex is in the chat also, so he's already showing love in the chat, saying it was great to meet you. So again, This is how we get viewers. You have to go to all the banks in the Southern California area until you run into some listeners.
I just walk in and go, hey, do you like soccer? And I'm like, you should listen. I got a podcast that I do. You should listen. Yeah.
So my story, I was at Target in Frisco, Texas, and I see this guy who's pretty ripped, pretty muscular, checking out, and I'm like, I know this guy. I know who this person is.
Right.
And I don't want to profile, but I'm like, it has to be. And then as we exit, I go up and I say, excuse me, are you Bobby Lashley? And it was professional wrestler Bobby Lashley. And everyone knows how into, wrestling and WWE me and my son are. So my son was all stoked that we got to meet Bobby Lashley, and I was all happy. I was like, well, my son's a big fan. And I was like, actually, I'm a big fan, but my son's here too. And so it was just kind of cool to see someone in the wild. So again, varying degrees of fame and musculature. Right. Josh Guesman at the bank, Bobby Lashley at a Target in Frisco.
Same thing, really.
It takes all kinds. Yeah.
I was thinking of Empire Records a little bit. Another throwback movie. Whenever I forget, Rex Manning is the name of the star who has the whole thing, and this girl walks up to and he goes, and who do I make this out to? And she says her mom's name. She goes, oh, is that your name? He goes, no, that's my mom. I don't even know who you are, right? that type of thing. And I was like, that's where I fit in a lot more. I think that goes. LA Galaxy. I mean, what are we doing? What are we even doing? This team, Eric, I've tried.
They have us at a loss for words.
I don't know what this team has done to us over 32 games now. Only 2 games left. LA Galaxy, as we said, 4 points away from clinching. And the magic number is 4 points. If LAFC lose a certain number of points, that would then shrink that number. So it's really a combination of things. And by the way, they're going to get a chance to see that happening because LAFC will play before the LA Galaxy play on Saturday night. It very well could be that fan appreciation night, so often doomed, and fans
don't say it.
Yeah,
don't
I know.
Say it.
I just want to put it out there, but so often a doomed game for LA Galaxy fans. You're like, this is the worst game of the year. The Galaxy have already missed the playoffs. This has been the record as of late. Galaxy have already missed the playoffs. They have nothing to play for. They're going to get blown out, and then they're not going to want to sign autographs afterwards, and then everybody's going to get mad at them for not wanting to sign autographs and all that other stuff that goes in between it, and that's where we're at. Instead, what could happen should LAFC drop, really, if they lose, if they draw, that type of thing, it could shrink the number enough to where the LA Galaxy could clinch on Saturday. That's craziness.
Yeah, and I think this win at Colorado really has the Galaxy playing with house money also, because even if LAFC does win out, I think if the Galaxy secure 3 points here, I think on paper it's technically not a clinch,
right?
But it would have to be, they'd have to win by like 10 goals or 7 goals or something like that.
They have to make up the goal differential.
They'd have to make up a huge goal differential, which is, having them win out is one thing, but then to make up, 6-7 goals, of course, crazier things has happened,
right?
But they could unofficially clinch with a win as well, and that it doesn't even matter with anything else goes. And I think that goes to tell how important these 3 points were in Colorado, because it really it opens them up for this free flowing game and keeping the momentum. And Kevin mentioned it on Monday as well, that this stop start with the breaks in between, getting hot against Colorado and taking that momentum into Austin and being able to be done with it and sealing first place essentially this weekend would be massive. And where Houston game is just icing on the cake. I can't. The Galaxy, if they learn how to play 90 minutes, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with.
Thank you for saying that. That, because I want to contradict that. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is just my observation. Because
I know what you're going to say, but go for it.
No, I'm going to go. I'm usually with you. I'm like, hey, show me you can do it over 90 minutes. Show me that you can put things together. Give me 90 minutes of thing. This LA Galaxy team is so explosive on offense. And by the way, could set a new modern era record for goals, which was at 69. They're currently predicted to be at 70. Could set a new record for goals. That's Zlatan Ibrahimovic didn't get this done. Zlatan's was at 66, I believe, was the top in that in one of the years where the Galaxy scored a whole bunch of goals. But they are so explosive. I don't know that they need to play well for more than 15 or 20 minutes. And it's stupid, Eric. It's stupid. You shouldn't say that. I shouldn't, as somebody who watches games, and you who watch games, and fans who watch games, we shouldn't, for 16 years, I will fight to the death and say, you can't win games unless you play, the whole 90 minutes. You got to play.
Can't win 4-3 every game. Oh, maybe we can.
Yes, you can. And I'm telling you right now, it's going. So there's another shift that I've sort of been looking at too, is that MLS has invested so much in offensive threats and offensive players, and we know that defense has been neglected over the years, that the defense doesn't matter as much. And here, just wait. People are already, defense wins championships. It very well could be the case. Okay, but I'm just going to tell you that there aren't too many good defensive teams in Major League Soccer, and I think there's a ton of offensive teams, and I think a team like Miami, which is a very good offensive team and not a great defensive team, that team, over 34 games, just clinched the Supporters' Shield.
Yeah.
They don't have a good defense, but they were able to go out there, and it helps whenever you have guys like Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi, but they were able to clinch a Supporters' Shield. Now, can they do it in the playoffs and these one-offs? Certainly up for question, but I am not of the opinion that the LA Galaxy are not MLS Cup material because the defense hasn't been good.
But you and I have also been arguing that the defense is better than the set piece situation shows, and that the goals against show. And so that's where I thought you were going to go with it. That, they still looked good in the first half, even though there wasn't they looked so much. I think they looked so much better in the second half that it showed that the first half was not a great half for them. So the one thing that I'll kind of go back to on where I wanted to land on that is that the missed chances, we were texting each other. You said they could have had 7 goals on that.
Right.
And I think the haters will look at that and say, you dwell on the missed chances. It's like, hey, they need to get their finishing boots on. They had so many chances. They only put away 3 of them. But I think the real ones will recognize the ability to create chances trumps everything else. I think we've seen teams go in and just not look dangerous, not look interested in attacking towards the goal. When you have a team that has the ability to create chances, I think that's where you start falling into your camp, where it doesn't matter if we go down a goal, go down 2 goals. If you can create chances, that the chances are going to come somewhere down the line. Even looking back to that Portland loss, they were out of that game twice, but not really, because they were still creating chances. They could have tied that game 4-4 if the ball bounces a few different ways. So I think this team's ability to create chances is massive. And you mentioned Zlatan Ibrahimovic. His best season, I believe he scored 31 goals. With Puig, Paintsil, and Peck, the triumvirate of designated players. Right now they have, I believe it's 37 goals and 37 assists between the 3 of them, however you split it up. And we were talking about bringing a guy in like Zlatan to score the goals and put it away. When they relied heavily on Chicharito, he was having, I think his best season was in the, close to 20 goals or somewhere in that range. Having 3 players like this contribute 10 goals at a time is more valuable than having a guy who scores 31 goals on his own. And that's a crazy thing to say as someone who loved Zlatan Ibrahimovic and loved watching him play and watching him dominate games. But this is so much better because it's a 3-pronged attack, and then you throw in Joveljic in there, and it just really takes them over the top.
Man, it's sort of crazy. This is kind of the preamble to us even going over. It's just like this is broad strokes right now.
We're excited.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. By the way, let's get to some super chats before we get too far off. Gary, in before the show started, Gary, $5 super chat. Can't make the can't make the live show, but we'll listen on Spotify later. Hello, all. And as always, thanks, gentlemen, for the rad pod. I think we should get a T-shirt that just says rad pod.
Rad pod.
Dad pod, rad pod.
No, I think Rad Pod and then a little quote mark, Gary.
Yeah, Gary.
Because that's Gary's line. Gary's a legend. Even when he's not here, he's here. Shout out to you, Gary.
Rad Pod. It just has such a good ring to it, Gary. It's like you should trademark that, By the way, a little note from our SD Galaxy fans. A $6.19 super chat. Is that a 619 shout out for San Diego? But our SD Galaxy fans, always a great group of people. I'm going to allow this on this because, one, the SD Galaxy fans are Galaxy fans through and through. Supporting down in there. So here it is. Everybody buckle up a little bit. This one might hurt a little bit, but go Padres.
Earmuffs.
Go Padres beat LA. Obviously talking about the Dodgers and the Padres. So that going on. We will allow it because we respect what you do down in San Diego.
We do. And again, as a Dodgers fan, I gritted my teeth.
Right.
But again, as a respect for the Galaxy fans and what they do in San Diego, we'll allow it. Shout out to you. Enjoy enjoy the series. I'll say that.
Now, I did mention that Seattle. I was going to say Seattle. Seattle's on my mind. I've been paying attention to some of the standings. All of a sudden, by the way, at one point, Colorado was in second place, like near second place in the Western Conference, right? And they were like, "Oh, Colorado, here they come!" Like second or third place during that game, and they finished in sixth place.
That's
when
wild.
all was said and done. Seattle jumping up and doing some things in there as well. Seattle now in the top 4 in the Western Conference. Don't sleep on Seattle. Start looking at those brackets. Things are getting
sneaky team.
Things are getting a little heated here. But Miami did clinch the Supporter Shield. They beat Columbus, which I was waiting to watch that game, and Columbus got manhandled in this particular game. Interesting to watch that game in Columbus too. So Miami Supporter Shield winners 3-2. Really interesting on that. The only other thing that I would like
goals galore too. It was a crazy game. Weird goals, lots of goals, quick
3-2,
goals.
right? Yeah, 3-2 was final. At one point it was like 3-1, or and you're like, oh, this game's way over, and then Columbus scores. It's just weird game. And I got to watch a little bit and listen to some of it in the car before the Galaxy played. But then MLS sort of went out and did Supporter Shield winners, Inter Miami CF, and a little Vice City in here. Like, right? Is that Grand Theft Auto Vice City sort of recognition? And I'm going, oh man, nice current pull MLS. Like, that's really awesome. Like Vice City, it wasn't that long ago. And then I looked it up, and Grand Theft Auto Vice City 2002, Eric, just in case you wanted to feel old.
I have a fun fact about this also. Again, Vice City, and again, Miami has been cruising on that Vice City hype for, darn no 40 plus years with those 80s colors and 80s vibes here. But I saw something, I saw it on a TikTok, and it's just kind of a crazy stat. The gap between Vice City and the time span that it was spoofing was 16 years. It was supposed to take place in 1986, and the game came out in 2002.
Okay.
If Vice City came out today, it'd be a throwback to the music and the times of yesteryear of 2008. So if it came out now, the game would be set in 2008. I think that's probably the last time Grand Theft Auto was released. So crazy times. Yep. Crazy times.
Oh my goodness, still fun, still a lot of good one to see, but I did like that play. All right, let's get to the LA Galaxy now. 3-1 winners over Colorado. Colorado scoring first, by the way. The LA Galaxy, whenever they allow the first goal, we can just pull up this chart because it's one of my favorites. 4, 6, and 3. That means 7 times out of the 13 games the LA Galaxy allowed the first goal, the Galaxy got a point or better. And whenever you look at where they have their wins, they got 4 total wins in those away games, right? Or, excuse me, 4 total wins whenever they have allowed the first goal. That means that 2 of them happened on the road and 2 of them happened away. So the LA Galaxy actually listen, we're not going to say they're the best. Yeah. We're not going to say they have a great road record. They don't have a great road record, but they have been able to pull off some games in this that have been pretty good. Overall in what they were trying to do. You look at the Galaxy's road record right now, 6-6-4, so very much a 500. If you're 500 on the road, and you get you're 12-1-3 at home, that type of thing, you're doing okay. All right, you're not bad. Only can you want to talk about a 500 team, which is 500 in a different way. Miami 10-2-4 at home, 10-2-4 away. It doesn't seem to matter where they play. So.
It's funny. I was doing the same math you're doing. I was like, okay, 6-6-4. How does that compare across the league? And you look at, LAFC's 6-6-3, Seattle 7-7-2, Salt Lake 4-4-8. So if you're at 500 on the road, you're top 4 that's securing a home game. So again, not a bad thing. Is it? Do you want better? Of course. Do you want what Miami has? Fantastic. But then you look at Miami, and that just changes the perspective. But you consider that they're outside in their own category just because of the players that they have. And to me, I've been surprised that they've been able to last this long of a season. And I'm waiting for the wheels to come off in game 33. I'm like, they're not going to last the first half of the season. Oh, well, now after Leagues Cup, it's all going to fall apart. Well, right. Now that they've secured the Shield, now it's going to fall apart. I'm waiting for it to happen, and it's just not happening, and that says something to the quality of those players.
Yeah, I will also say that we've been doing the same thing with the Galaxy. I think the Galaxy and Miami
back to earth.
are like different, but very much the same, right? Where high-powered offenses and built in different ways, high-powered offenses, and then sometimes suspect defenses. That being said, Colorado was among the league leaders in expected goals, and the LA Galaxy were able to hold them to just 1 goal. That was not something that should be dismissed or overlooked or anything like that. That was actually a pretty big stand for the LA Galaxy to go into Colorado. Now, Colorado had a game over the weekend, so it was coming in, and they were a little. You could see that they were tired, and we'll talk about it here. But here is your lineup for the LA Galaxy. I think one we expected with Marco Royce still out. Now, Marco Royce, apparently, according to Greg Vanney, possible for this weekend, and they're going to go back and see sort of how he is. It's one of those that I don't know that they're going to rush it. I'm serious. I don't know that they need to rush it. Yeah, because you have 2 weeks off after this game on Saturday before you play again on the 19th, which is the final one. That 2 weeks gives Marco Royce the full 2 weeks to get back, and they still get to play one more regular season game in Houston before the playoffs start. So there's time in all of this. But without Marco Royce, the LA Galaxy put out, I believe, the starting lineup that we thought it was going to be: John McCarthy, Miki Amane, Amiro Garces, Maya Yoshida. We'll talk about Garces here in a second. Maya Yoshida, John Nelson. You had Mark Delgado, Edwin Cerrillo, Ricky Puig, Gabriel Peck, Dejan Jovalic, and Joseph Paintsill. Garces is now, it looks like the starter. And
is it time to have that conversation? That's what I was going to ask. Is he the starter?
He is. I don't think anybody's going to argue. I think he's a little more physical than Jalen Neal. Mm-hmm. Certainly, they like his speed and his recovery ability. I will say that he was much more careless with his physicality and sort of his chances and times to make fouls, and that carelessness put the LA Galaxy into a bunch of corner kicks, a couple of free kicks. Like, it wasn't something that you really wanted to keep doing. Now, having said that, the LA Galaxy probably had one of their best set piece defense games of the entire year, because there were multiple corners. Right. Yeah, and you could see Maya Yoshida had a monstrous night. If you didn't see Maya Yoshida having a monstrous night in this, you weren't watching the game. Dude's head was on everything. Probably the best defender on the field. And Garces, like I said, a little careless sometimes with where he makes fouls or where he allows the ball to go out of bounds. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you don't. It depends on what you're doing. Sometimes a little careless in possession. Having said all that, the ceiling's high for him. I don't think this is the end for Jalen Neal or anything else. I just think that as of right now, Garces is going to be the starter, and they're going to start next to Maya Yoshida, and we'll see what happens, in the playoffs and everything else. But I think that Garces is going to be that starter for now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. And you don't want to discredit what Jalen Neal did and the season that he's had. And again, the season's not over. There's still a lot of games to be played. And we talk about depth all the time, the luxury of depth and being able to swap Garces and Neal out and not really lose not too much of a difference. And down the stretch, if you're up in a game late in the playoffs when it gets crucial and you need to bring in a 3 center back setup and bringing Neal off the bench or Garces off the bench and having those 3 set up back there, what a luxury to have that. Or even if you need to swap one of them off, you're not losing, a lot of quality there. So I think that's a good thing, that the fact that, Garces has kind of shown that he's maybe more in form right now. And just the fact that, Neal has had the season that he has. Neal brings something different as well. You talked about the carelessness. Neal brings the opposite, the calmness. And Yoshida, I know the game that that I was there, he mentioned something about Neal having a little more edge to him and maybe him bringing a little bit more of that physicality and that bite. Right. And Garces has that. Yep. And so if you can meld them together, you'd have a perfect defender. If you have Garces maybe peel it back a little bit and Neal with that little extra bite and that extra edge, then maybe you'd have kind of the perfect situation. But also there are moments where you need that extra bite and you're willing to sacrifice the calmness and the, cooler than the other side of the pillow piece because you want that aggression, to go make that game-saving tackle. And then in other situations, you want Jalen Neal to keep his cool and to, no matter what happens, if they get down, to have that steadiness. So they really, as much as you wish you would meld them together, I think they complement each other really well also, which also sets us up. Let's give Yoshida his flowers for how well he played. To me, he was I haven't released my, champion of the match and in the mix, but he's one of those who's going to get, in the standings. He's going to get mentioned in there. But it also sets up the Galaxy for the future and where they're going to go. I could see a pairing of Garces and Neal. That's something to be excited about in the years to come.
Yeah, you could see it certainly with where it goes. No, I thought the LA Galaxy's defense was good. Speaking of defense, Julian Aude got time in this again, man.
Got some moments.
Came in. Watching the LA Galaxy kill off this game was enjoyable. It wasn't heart attack making. It was like, hey, you did miss like a lot of chances to go ahead and get that third goal, but once you got the third goal, it was sort of in there. I want to talk about the first half too. Because afterwards, I got to talk to Greg Vanney about it, and it was sort of, One, I feel at this point that I've asked Greg Vanney the same question 100 million times, and it's sort of like I'm trying to give you new ways to say different things, Greg, but I don't even know. I think at one point I even talked about Ricky Puig. I'm like, I don't know that we have anything else new to say about Ricky Puig, but I think we have to keep talking about him. So what do you see? But just talking about the first half, the LA Galaxy, there's some things, there's some growth that I'd love to see. But I will tell you this: Colorado played a really good first half. They were energetic. Their press was very good. The LA Galaxy couldn't break it. Colorado knew where the Galaxy were going to be and stashed bodies there. You have to give credit to teams sometimes for how they press, how they play, and what they're able to do whenever they do that, right? You have to say that, the LA Galaxy are a very good team. They break a lot of presses. You expect that to happen. And in this particular case, Colorado was the better team in the first half because they were able to press. Now, I don't think they got a ton of chances out of it. I mean, they certainly made the LA Galaxy nervous, right? A couple times. And outside of the goal that happens in the 45th minute is one of those where you're like, transition goal, and then you don't get back, like, because Peck goes to try to like break out on the transition, and he tries to pass it by somebody, and they step in front of it, and then all of a sudden comes through, and then it's like you had the bodies back, and you expected it to be good. I know a lot of people were giving John McCarthy crap because he didn't move. I did, though, when they showed the
There's
angle.
No way, yeah.
When they showed the angle, yeah, I think there were 6 players, and he doesn't even see the ball before it like basically halfway to him, and I was like, okay.
And that's to not give credit to how well placed it was. I think even if he did see it, that's a hard ball to go get. When I first saw that play, I thought, maybe Yoshida's the guy who got marked out of position. But then you saw how he went down injured, and it was, he was kind of trying to come back to life and stumble back up. So to me, that, I'm going to go back to that Columbus-Miami game. I watched a goal where Columbus just shot themselves in the foot, where they ran into their own goalkeeper, gave Suarez, essentially an empty net to head it in. This was not that situation. This was not them shooting themselves in the foot. To me, this was more of a unfortunate situation, and Colorado took advantage than the Galaxy defense playing poorly and doing something wrong. So I think that's a good sign.
Super chat from Steve. Steve, $10 super chat says 6 rings, exclamation point. Woo.
Running out of fingers, folks.
We're going to have to get another hand in here. Certainly.
All right, I'm going to leave that one alone.
100%. Alex, $5 super chat. Alex, we appreciate it. Thank you for your first super chat on the live stream. Steve, you too, your first super chat. And then Patrick, $20 super chat. Really appreciate the super chat. Never make a live show, but always listen the next day. But here I am live and able to leave some funds towards the Dr. Pepper mini fridge in Josh's podcast room fund. Great work as always, gentlemen. Patrick, we appreciate you. Thank you for that. No, but you go and look at this. Here's the thing is, I thought the Galaxy played well. I think that the finishing there was just, it wasn't there. I felt like maybe they get into that same habit of being a little impatient whenever they get in front of goal. And I think when you're behind, sometimes and whenever the Galaxy were even trying to chase sort of the possession that was happening, because Colorado was good in that first half. They would turn you over and they put some pressure on. They had players who could run. Like, all these things were really putting pressure on the LA Galaxy, and you were sort of like, okay, it's 1-0 at halftime, and you're like, man, right before half. But here's the thing that we have learned, and this is where I want to see the growth. Greg Vanney goes into halftime. They come out of halftime. They adjusted positions. They adjusted where Miki Amane was, according to Greg. Mm-hmm. I think they moved Mark Delgado into the half space in front of the midfield because he got the ball and was able to turn, and that's basically how the first goal comes, right? When the whole deal gets played in there. The only criticism I have, and the LA Galaxy are, in my mind, the best second half team in all of Major League Soccer, and it's probably not even close. The amount of times we've watched this team stumble in the first half and come out second half and be like, oh yeah, remember, they can score like 3 goals in no time, so chill out. Everything's going to be fine. It's countless how many times that's happened. The growth I want to see is, can those guys figure it out in the first half? Adjust the position in the first half. And maybe it is a team thing, because the growth you have in Greg Vanney's system and where Toronto eventually got, where they won the treble and they did all that, although I like Greg Vanney. I think he's great, but you can't call the Canadian Championship a treble. So it's still winning Supporter Shield and winning
they can.
Yeah, no, they can't. Winning Supporter Shield, winning the winning MLS Cup is a big deal. And Toronto did that. But his teams were able to solve problems, right, on the field, right? And they had guys like Michael Bradley and Giovinco and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I think the Galaxy have a similar brain trust in who they have there, but I'm waiting for them to solve those problems because it is night and day difference. First of all, I don't have the ability, certainly. So I'll let's give Greg Vanney his flowers, the guy who got the contract extension because he made the playoffs and all that stuff. He's able to make second half adjustments that I don't understand how he's able to sort of, put that in, right? There's some stuff in there where you're like, oh, wow, I get what you did. Little tweaks have such a big influence on this team. You saw it in the second half, but could you figure it out in the first half? Like, once you see, oh, look at what they're doing. This is what they're doing. Let's change it up. And the fact that the Galaxy changed it up, Ricky Puig said something afterwards, and I'll get to you. Ricky Puig said something, and I was sort of waiting how he was going because sometimes when he speaks in English, the pauses in between words are just a little uneven sometimes, and you don't know exactly where he's going. And he goes, we destroyed them on the counter, right? And it was like one of those, I'm like, no, he got it right too. Yeah. We destroyed them on the counter. He's right, but they also just destroyed them in possession in that second half.
Yeah.
That was impressive. And to be able to hold the ball like that, to be able to create the goals, create the chances like that, and then, like I said, killing it off in that second half where basically they were like, let's pass the ball around for the last 5-6 minutes of that game. That game was...
Give some Olay. I was waiting for the Olay chance if we had enough Galaxy fans there. Yeah, so the thing that I'll say, one, shout out to you for going back to the premise of why don't we just make the plane out of the black box?
Yes,
because that way, if it's indestructible, why don't we just build the whole plane out of that? And two, with Greg Vanney making those second half adjustments, it goes back to some of these conversations that we've had with former players and former colleagues of Greg Vanney who say, oh no, Vanney gets it. He's a good coach. That's someone who sees the game differently. And I think this is proving that. And you think back to those struggles that he may have had where maybe he didn't have the kitchen fully stocked to what he didn't have the ingredients to make those adjustments when he needed them. But you can't make the adjustments to the team you're playing against until you see a half of how they're playing him to make those adjustments. So that's kind of, that's the duality of it as well. You're not going to be able to make adjustments on the fly if you don't know how the other team's going to come out. You once you saw how Colorado, what their game plan was and how they were going to go against the Galaxy. And again, not watching enough teams around the league. I don't know if that's how they play against everybody, but it seemed like they definitely had a way that they wanted to attack the Galaxy and to put that press on them. And so I think once he saw that, he's able to make that adjustment. So big credit to him. And it is all snapping into focus in terms of the things we were hearing about Vanney, the way people talked about him and the way, he was looked about so fondly with his time in Toronto and people who played with him. It's all snapping into focus. Oh, this is what they were talking about. And so to see it all pay off, big shout out to him.
I will say this, and I will continue to say it. I was telling everybody, and even through some of the bad times, that Greg Vanney's a great coach, and you could just tell, just the way he explains things in press conferences. In my experience, having dealt with all the LA Galaxy coaches that I've dealt with, visiting managers, everything else, I mean, you look at the litany of people that we've got to talk to after games, whether it's, Siggy Schmidt, or it's Bruce Arena, or it's Dave Sarakin, or let's see, you could go with Pat Noonan, or you could go with Dominic Kinnear.
You're not throwing Guillermo Barashikola. He was
GBS. He was next. GBS is in there. Curtin Alfo is in there. Just going back and looking at all the guys that we've gotten to talk to, just in my opinion, from what I see tactically and just the way that they approach the game, Greg Vanney, to me, at least, let's put it this way. He explains things the way that I think, so it's easy for me to understand what he's trying to say, because I think a lot of times we think the same thing. That is giving me way too much credit. I don't want you to think that me and Greg were, no, he's way smarter in this arena than I am and has studied way more and understands that. But I think the players get it too. I think he's able to explain things, how they can get it, how they move, you can see it. You can see the adjustments. You can see how they play coming out of that second half. How easy did Gabriel Peck score that goal? And by the way, he passed it into the side. He didn't even hit it that hard.
He didn't hit it well. That was a muffed punt, but it's still. Sometimes those work out better, right? When you see strikers do this all the time, and even in the top leagues, they mishit it, but it ends up just slow. Everyone's just watching it roll slowly into the goal because it goes into the exact place where no one's going to be able to get it. So again, it's all about creating the chances, putting yourself in that situation. I know the chat was mentioning got to make sure you give Gabriel Peck a shout out as well, and so he's deserving of that. And I'll go back to my champion of the week thing that I've been doing on Instagram. If you're following at HammerEV9, shameless plug there. But after every game, we've been doing it. And Peck was jumping up in the total standings because he's had more games where he stood out a little bit more. As I look through and kind of comb through the data, he's also in the games that they lose, he's usually the player that's the one bright spot. But in the games where the Galaxy win, it's more Ricky Puig moments. So that's not to take away from the season that Gabriel Peck is having, but I think a lot of what you're able to unlock with Peck is Puig creating that and putting him in the right positions and drawing the defenders away to the center of the field to, open up the wings for Painstill and for Peck. And Peck has really kind of thrived with Puig in tandem. So as much as, as polarizing as Ricky Puig can be for his attitude and for what he does, I think you don't get the success of Gabriel Peck without Ricky Puig being right there side by side, making it happen with it.
Let's get to some. Okay, I have like 5 players I want to discuss, and then but I want to get to super chats. Victor, $10 super chat. Do you expect a lot of rotation this weekend for Austin? No, that's just me. The Galaxy didn't have a game over the weekend. I think they're okay.
2 weeks till the next.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised to see some shift. Like there could be 1 or 2 guys. Like maybe Gaston Brugman starts the game instead of Mark Delgado. I don't expect that. I'm just saying that's
You also can see a Jalen Neal instead of Garces.
Right. I don't think you're going to see any of that because the Galaxy have a very good chance of clinching with a win, right? So it's one of those. It's like, okay, because really you have to look at the off week where LAFC is going to play, missing some internationals and all that. They drop any points there, the Galaxy would clinch, right? Like it's one of those. It's just it's right on the cusp. So I think this game in Austin. The good news for the LA Galaxy, I think, and just to preview to Austin in a second, is I don't think this will be a trap game because the LA Galaxy are going to be up for this game. Last game to remain undefeated at Dignity Health Sports Park, and a chance really to put a stranglehold on the Western Conference and be just inches from clinching it, if not backing into that clinch, right? So
yeah, and Kevin mentions it all the time that Vanny always talks about this last 10 games is really the playoffs. That's when, everything means it. And I saw them switched on in this game in Colorado as well. This was not a sleepy game away at Dallas, away at Austin, where we've seen them kind of fall apart and bury themselves. They were up for the challenge here. They looked hungry to try to get those 3 points, even with the struggles that they have. It looks like they were getting after it. So I'm with you. I don't think we see a lot of rotation, and I think you see a Galaxy team that goes out there knowing what the stakes are and wanting to put it away before this 2-week break.
$5 super chat from Alex. Hey, thanks again, Alex. Thanks for the shout out, Josh. It was a pleasure to meet you. Made me feel like a celebrity. See you on Saturday, Alex the branch manager. Alex is great.
Alex the branch manager. That needs to be on a shirt.
Like a shirt. He needs to get that shirt. Alex, come see us at halftime. A $5 super chat for Raphael. Thanks, Pato and Hammer. G's up. We always appreciate that.
Shout out to you, Raphael.
Jonathan, $10 super chat. Jonathan in Colorado, by the way, I should point out. I know that John is over there. But John in Colorado, $10 super chat. Sexy football is back. It can be sometimes, man.
Yeah, it really was.
I have one of the dads in the school group is German. I think I've talked about Dirk on this. This
Dirk, I know Dirk.
Dirk is my boy. He was texting me during, like he's in now. Like he's fully in. Not only for Marco Royce, right?
Royce played some minutes. Yep. The Galaxy are playing sexy football. Right. I get it. Dirk is in.
Dirk is in. So he's texting me during the game, and he's like, he could. I always want to do his accent. I really shouldn't. But he's like, the midfield is going to cause them some problems just because there's a lot of holes. Like he's seeing that. I think Dirk watched, but now that he knows that I'm interested, and now that Royce is he's seen the Galaxy play well, he's like in, and so now he's really watching. He's there's holes in the midfield. I go, if they keep the hammer down, this team will destroy people. And that's when the Galaxy got 2 goals, then 3 goals. I'm like, there it is. That's how it works. I go, don't worry about the defense. Just score more goals than everybody. It's not.
Welcome to MLS, Dirk.
it's yeah, right. I'm like, listen, this is not the Bundesliga. We're not going to be playing beautiful defense. Okay, that's not part of it. But no, you watch this team and sort of the way it goes, and people are excited about it. I mean, it's funny. There's somebody in our Discord who's like, oh man, I never see LAFC fans. And I'm like, wow. I go, I see them all the time. But the nice part right now is that the LA Galaxy fans are starting to come back out. And listen, I'm never going to be one of those people who are like, oh, you went underground while the LA Galaxy sucked for 10 years. Yeah, I get it. Like, that's how this works. 7 years. I shouldn't give them too much. 7 years. While they sucked for 7 years. Yeah, I get it. But there's wide support for the LA Galaxy across Southern California, and you will see that whenever it comes to all this. So.
It also rips the Band-Aid off, because I think it's all about, people like to talk about the diehards and you're there every week and you're chanting and you're jumping up and down, but casuals do exist. And sometimes when, you're casual, the team is losing, you're not interested. But then when they start winning again and say, hey, look at that LA Galaxy team that I used to like. They're back. Let me get back into it. And you jump right into it. Into the LAFC of it all. With the group chat, I've talked about my group chat that I'm in all the time with the multiple fan bases. The one thing that is different this year is even though they're having a decent season, they're a lot quieter. They're not as quick to talk their smack and to try to rub things, rub your nose in certain things. They're a lot quieter this year. So I think that's the big difference. Are there more of them? Are there less of them? I don't know, but I can tell you they're not as obnoxious as they were, and that tells me that they're nervous about the Galaxy team that they're seeing with, and rightfully so.
One of the guys who's at the train club with me, funny enough, somebody who's in our chat room introduced me to a guy who liked trains, and then I got that guy to join the train club, and now we're together at the train club.
What
and
a
the
time
guy
to be alive.
And the guy who is in our chat room a lot, Mr. Provino, by the way, Matt. But Matt, whenever he's around, like, that type of thing, it's always this other guy, Mike, he knows all about the Galaxy because he talks with Matt, so he's a Galaxy fan. He just doesn't go to games. He's more of a train club guy. But we'll talk about the Galaxy, and we were running a train one day, and we were loading people up, and they had LAFC hats on, and he was like, "I'm sorry, you guys can't ride this train." And they're like, "What?" And he was like, "Okay, only if you take the hats off, right?" It was
G's
funny,
only.
I was like, "Oh,
Express,
nice. Mike's in." So always fun. It's fun to have that little riveting and rivalry go on again. And quite honestly, if you're an LA Galaxy fan or anything else, it's taken a back seat a little bit. The most important thing for the LA Galaxy right now, win the Western Conference in that first spot. That's it. That's the only thing they have to focus on. Let's talk about 5 players that I thought had absolutely ridiculously good games. We already talked about Maya Yoshida, so let's put him down as one of those guys. Let's go into the midfield and talk about 2 guys, right? And you're like, should we really be talking about half the roster in a game? Like, where's that? Yes, we should be. 2 guys. Edwin Cerrillo, the godlike child himself, just floating around back there, keeping things simple, keeping the ball moving, he's starting to find some progressive passes. He's starting to cut things in and out. He plays good defense. Yes, he still makes some mistakes sometimes, but good Lord, you'd love to see him out there. Has moved Gaston Brugman out of a starting spot. So everything that Edwin Cerrillo has done recently has been outstanding. And
I want to call him the golden boy. I think with the bleached hair, and it just seems like he's emerging into his, into this, aura around him. So to me, I think the nickname Golden Boy fits just because everything he's doing just seems to be everything he's doing is the right thing.
So 100%. So Edwin Cerrillo, you have to talk about Mark Delgado and what he was able to do. Marco Royce doesn't play. Mark Delgado comes in. I know there's sort of been some people and some questions about whether Mark Delgado is even here next year. People got really upset when we started talking about guys not going to be here with like 2 games left. I'm like, listen, I'm just telling you there's things that are going to start happening.
I'll agree with them. I didn't like that either.
Yeah, you're like, stop it.
Let's get through the playoffs and let's figure that out first.
There was no game over the weekend, Eric. What do you want me to talk about? Okay. Trains. We could do that. So seeing Mark Delgado and what he was able to do, and especially that first ball that he gets in that second half and is able to slot in, Gabriel Peck for the goal, that type of thing, really awesome. That's awesome. We talked at nauseum about Ricky Puig, but he is absolutely hitting it at the right time, in the right place. Everything about him, as prima donna-ish as he is, he's the best player on the LA Galaxy. He is the team MVP.
Yeah.
You can talk about Gabriel Peck all you want, which I am like, man, dude has had a ridiculous season. Absolutely ridiculous. 28 goals and assists for Gabriel Peck. 28. 27 for Ricky Puig. 27 for those. You got to be. Those are ridiculous numbers. And I love Gabriel Peck and everything. We can talk about him if you want, like just the way that he's matured and how comfortable he looks out there and just taking people on. Did you see him dancing and going over the ball when the Galaxy are up 3-1? I mean, God, that's annoying if you're the other team.
That's him at his peak. And I'll go back to your comment about Ricky and him kind of coming with the prima donna or whatever it is. The world is not, AI yet. People still have personalities. And I think you have to appreciate people for what they are. And if you've been on a team and been around the dynamic of, a team composition, you have to embrace those little things. And those could be even the things that you pick on. And then you talked about it with Kevin, with Maya Yoshida kind of picking on, I saw Ricky playing defense for the first time.
It was amazing.
And Rick, we don't want to get Ricky upset. He's going to tweet about us. That could be banter, during the practice or after the game. And so you have to embrace those things. So is Ricky the same player if he doesn't have that same flair,
No.
the pink cleats.
No.
He's not. He
Little
doesn't
Salt
bring you the
Bae
same things.
celebration.
So you need that little extra sauce,
I
that little
agree.
extra piece to it, and that's what makes, to get very holistic and
Yes.
very elementary school teacher. That's what makes the world a special place. We're all different in our own ways. So again, you have to embrace it and lean into it with Ricky.
Ricky Pooch can be the cause of all your problems and the solution to all your problems all at the same time, right? It's one of those. He's one of those players, but he is a special player whenever he plays. And whenever you look, the fact they didn't have Marco Royce, and it's funny because for most of the season they didn't have Marco Royce, but when he's out there, I think he really allows Ricky Pooch to be a little more calm. Somebody said they thought that Ricky was already playing more calm now even with like Royce just being out there, even though he wasn't in this game, that perhaps yes and no. I think it's a little early to say that that's the case, but the goals that Ricky scored, the way that he was able to exploit space, the passes that he made, and he didn't make a few passes that like were awesome. He made like 12 passes that were awesome. Yeah,
I'll say this about Royce and Ricky. From the outsider looking in, there's a connection there. You could tell with the video clips that are coming out, the Galaxy are releasing, the Galaxy Insider on Apple TV, the different things that they have going. You can tell that there's a special relationship there, and it's built on respect, most likely because Ricky knows the pedigree that Royce has when he's coming in. So you can tell he defers to him. He's trying to impress him, trying to almost like we saw that in the game, Royce's debut. It looked like Ricky was trying to impress, Royce.
Right.
Hey, look what I can do. Look, I'm on this team too. Almost, like a little brother type of situation. So, saying is it, that they've connected or that he's making him play different. I see it. I think from the outside looking in, you see players who take it up a notch and have a different level of respect for each other. I really think that, the spiciness that we have for Ricky, Royce can calm that down a little bit and kind of be the big brother to say, hey, rein it in, or let's do this, or let me let you loose, throw the Frisbee out and go get it type of situation. I see a special bond between them. You can see that they really get along and enjoy playing with each other.
You can see it for sure. By the way, shout out to Ernesto. He says, first time live, struggling at the Denver airport after finally witnessing an away win. What concourse? C, A, B, or C? I got some food recommendations in C. So
how is the Denver airport? Have I been? I think I've been. Is that the one with the mural and it has the craziness? The horses?
There is a horse. There is the
Okay.
horse with the red eyes that's out front.
That's what it is.
And then
Okay.
the baggage terminal and the main terminal is the one that looks like it's in a tent. That's the tent that's supposed to look like the mountains. They just redid a lot of the C concourse, which is where Southwest is, and so there's all new gates down on the east side, I believe, of the C concourse. So there's some places to eat down there and do some stuff. So, he's an A, so you're probably flying Frontier or United, maybe. I think United's B, so I think A is Frontier. I'm guessing Frontier.
Hot airport talk.
Right, I know. I know one young lady, by the way. Congratulations to Pam, who got married not too long ago. Good job, Pam.
Shout out, congrats.
She was texting me today. Actually, was asking about LA Galaxy stuff. So apparently, I don't know if she's still on her honeymoon. If she is, she should not be worried about the LA Galaxy. But I think she's back.
Well, I think a honeymoon at MLS Cup just sounds in Miami sounds like a fun time.
That sounds perfect. I mean, I'm in. When are we going? And oh wait, I've already had that one. So shout out to Pam. She would like the airport talk. She's always in. Frontier to Ontario. I know my airport. Don't worry about it. That's it. I'm in Denver all the time. I know these things. Let us know what animals on your plane whenever you finally get that. That's always important on Frontier. It matters.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, they have animals on the back of the tail. Like every plane is a different animal. So it could be like the snow owl.
I'm not going to scoff at Frontier.
No, you shouldn't.
I'll leave it alone.
Final person that I have to talk about, Dejan Jovalic. And listen, we can talk about Joseph Paintsel for other reasons. And I think Paintsel got hard done on the night. I thought there were a couple times where he was going to get played in. He also didn't finish a couple that I thought he should have, right?
Double whammy.
So you're always in there. Fine. that is what it is. I think that he could have, and Greg Vanny said afterwards as well, he said, I think they could have found him a couple times and probably played him in. Just one, Peck had a chance, I think, in the first half where if he hits it first time with his left foot, it's probably a goal, but he took a touch, right? Paintsel as well is like, hit the ball first. Just hit it. Just hit it hard. Good things will happen, right? Like, you don't have to kill it, but hit it hard. That thing. Dejan Jovalic, he's not going to show up on the score sheet. He's not going to have, this big, but the goal that he started with that ball that he heads out to Gabriel Peck was freaking amazing. That is the stuff
I know
that we
the
have.
broadcast was big on that.
whenever I watched it, I was like, you got to be kidding me. That header is like, before that goal even happened, I was like, that header could start a goal. I was like sitting here watching on the keyboard and the whole day, and I'm watching. I'm like, that's the kind of 9 header that causes problems. He hits a header, puts it into stride for Gabriel Peck, which if you're going to get him running downhill at people, there's already problems, big things. I think he comes in. I think that's the 3rd Ricky goal whenever that happens. But Ricky comes in, he cuts into the center. The reason that the center was open for Ricky to take the shot is Joveljic coming through on the left side and drags Reggie Cannon out by a foot. Reggie Cannon's like, oh crap, there's an overlap. Just enough. It's a foot. And that allows Push to pull it back, right foot, and pass it into the side of the net, right? Yeah. It was one of those.
That's one of those nuances. That's what I thought you were going to say. That's what I thought the initial praise was going to be. The header was impressive.
Yes.
That's why I was kind of, oh yeah, that's right. He did have that header, and I know the broadcast was talking about it. But when you've been watching the game and you appreciate forwards for making the runs, and you're showing the game to maybe more casual fans who don't know it, watching that day on Joveljic play, that's where you want to pause, rewind, watch what he did here.
Watch.
This is what a forward does when he doesn't score a goal, how he impacts the game. That's textbook, exactly what you want from your forward, opening up, the defense. And you don't have to even draw the defender, but you just have to make him notice you enough to kind of make him make a feint to open up the space. And that's how Ricky was able to score. So kudos to Joveljic for making that run. And going back to Paintsill, they could have found him more. I'm going to go back to my point about creating chances.
Yes.
Paintsill was in position. They didn't feed him, but he was in the right spot. So one of these, they are going to find him. They're going to find him eventually.
Yep.
If he keeps making that run, he keeps being in that right position. Right. The ball's going to find its way to him. So again, I wish they would have found him. I think he was hard done. I'm with you. But he also was unlucky on the chance that he had. But to me, more important than anything else, he's making the run, and there was the ability to pass to him, and that's huge.
By the way, corrected in the chat room, is goal number 2 correct, because goal number 3, Barry was in. Miguel Barry, by the way.
Miguel Barry show. That's right.
Miguel freaking Barry. This is what happens when they're good teams, okay? When you are a good team, by the way, bordering on great, and again, the stats prove out this LA Galaxy team is bordering on great. When you're a good team bordering on great, you get guys like Miguel Barry who just do their job and do it well. And Miguel Barry's job sometimes is to come in and just get that ball, run down to that side,
clog the drain,
stall for a little bit, let guys get closer, see what's going to develop, wait, and then feed Ricky Bush. And he did it perfectly. I mean, the cool thing that I know is happening about all this, Eric, is that we are talking about this because these guys played well, because there was energy and effort. And I think Colorado was tired. They had the game over the weekend, and then they came into this game, and they're running out of gas, right? And we talked about the LA Galaxy having the games front loaded probably helped them out, right? And the games in hand, everybody was sure the Galaxy would go behind when the games in hand are being played, boys and girls.
That's why you play the games. That's why the games aren't played on paper.
It's 100% that, right? And so you go and you watch this, but I know that we're talking about it, but you know who's also talking about it probably today or tomorrow whenever they come in? Greg Vanny's probably talking about it in the film room. Dayon, this was perfect. This is what you do. He's going in there building everybody up. Hey, Joseph, Joski over here. Yes, that's what the position we want you in. Keep being there. Keep doing that. Next time,
find him. Yeah.
Yeah, get it. Let's do this. Look at all this. Look at how good we did. Look at the bad things we did. This was bad. Let's not let this happen. Let's be careful about, this type of thing. We know that they're pumped up and ready to go right now. By the way.
So one more thing. Yes. I'm going to go finish the Barry thought.
Yes.
When everything's going well, even Miguel Barry gets some shine. The thing that made me, tickled me more than anything else is on the broadcast, Keith Costigan, as Barry got into space where, Peck was occupying previously, they said, and now Barry with the pace down the side. I was like, that is not a phrase that I thought I was going to hear.
I know.
Is the pace of Miguel Barry, stretching the defense. But it did. It worked. Was he, reaching the top speeds that Joseph Paintsill reaches? No. But he did his job. He did exactly what he was supposed to do in setting up that goal.
100%. Let's get to some more. Oh, by the way, text update. Pam did text it. She's listening, so it's always nice. So honeymoon is not right now. That's what she says. Love the Denver airport. Weird vibes. 100%. By the way, John in the chat room.
That's what it was.
John in the chat room also has been in the bowels of Denver Airport. So have I. And it is a weird place to be underneath Denver Airport. They had an automated baggage system that like throws bags and does all this stuff, and it's nuts under there, absolutely nuts. But by the way, so yeah, congratulations to Pam, and of course, honeymoon is next month. So she's like, of course, I'm probably gonna miss some playoff games, right? She's like, of course, the one time you get married and you try to. I got married in October. And then I went to a game the next day, if I remember correctly. Yes, that is correct. So got married on a Saturday. Sunday, got up and had the breakfast brunch for everything, and then I was fully allowed to go to the game. Wasn't shocking anybody. Went to that game, came back, and we left for our honeymoon on Monday, right? So we had that one day in there. So did it. Adam, $5 super chat. Hey guys, what do you think of Ted Uncle being the center referee on Saturday versus Austin, and of Kevin Stott being in the VAR? Don't care. Doesn't matter. LA Galaxy. It's like at this point it doesn't matter. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, I think when we go back to the LAFC game, I believe Uncle was he at the center of it?
I can't remember.
It was a name brand referee. It was a referee that you recognize, and it's a good and a bad thing because when you recognize their name, you've been hard done by them. But when you recognize their name, that means they've been around a while too. And I think that game there weren't any major refereeing issues, and I think that's what you want. And I think I don't have as much of an issue with Ted Uncle. He doesn't stand out as much. Same thing with Kevin Stott. So to me, having him there, that just tells me you're going to get a professional in there. It's not going to be a newer referee trying to make a name for himself, someone who has tons of yellow cards and tons of red cards. You're just going to get, a ho-hum professional day at the office refereeing situation. So I think it's a good thing.
100%. By the way, Scott, $5 super chat. Looking forward to the game on Saturday. Love the show. Hope to meet you both. Scott's going to be there. Dude,
Big Scott.
I
Let's
hope
go.
Scott get there. Eric won't be there because his wife won't let him come to another game.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I used up all my credits.
You
folks.
did.
It was worth it though for the pre-inter show. What time?
Yeah. It was a good time. Get your checkups, guys. 100%. Remember, there's digital exams now for prostate cancer and anything else that you need. Digital. I always hear that. I thought that they had computers that did it. I didn't realize they meant the fingers digital.
Oh man. Good times.
One of these days. Executive producer Herb is in on the super chats as well. $36 super chat. Herb, always appreciate you. Miss you much. Hey Josh, hey Hammer, late to the show. Was wondering if you can give us insight into the COG contracts. Will Alex still have a U22 next season? Is Hammer DP next season or TAM? Is Miles on the payroll still? Oh man, we'd love to get some. Christian Miles has been doing some of the Apple TV games too. If you've been paying attention.
Doing his thing.
I love me some Christian Miles. The man is busy a lot of times, which is sort of the thing. If you're not paying attention to the Galaxy all the time, that's one of the things where I sort of sit there and say, it's hard to do our podcast because you have to study too hard in order if you aren't following the Galaxy all the time.
It's niche.
Right?
It's niche for a reason. It's why I've locked down my spot. Which again, I'm gonna put the pressure back on executive producer Herb.
Right?
Was I not already a DP, or am I aging out to where you want to get me on a deal for TAM? What does that mean?
It might. I don't know. You're gonna have to talk to your agent.
Right,
the whole deal. Certainly getting Alex on, Sophie, Kevin and everything else. By the way, I don't say this often. I certainly don't want to say it on a show Kevin's actually on. He'll never hear this unless you tell him something. But the guy shows up every Monday, every Monday. It doesn't matter if he's on the road. He will sometimes move flights that way he can do the podcast in his hotel. And he's like, I'm just gonna come back later. He goes, I'll leave tomorrow morning, so I'll just stay in the hotel and do the thing. And that is Mr. Kevin Baxter. He gets paid $0 to do this, and he's like, hey, I'm committed. Whenever I got him on the show, I never thought that he would be that committed to this. And then I have to also point out to the Hammer here. In that prime leadoff spot whenever we can on Thursdays. And he's a busy man. He doesn't always have time to do it, but he is here more times than not. Sophie is great and love her to death and all that. But the Hammer puts in the work too. So
thank you.
Shout out to everybody, Alex, everybody.
Yeah, shout out to the whole game. I know our DPs have made the most appearances this season in a long time, and I think this has been my most appearances for a season as well. Again, being changing my schedule, it's actually as busy as I am. In other ways, it frees me up to be on the show a little more often, which is always a pleasure to talk LA Galaxy with you and the whole game.
It is. It's been a fun one. By the way, hearing that the Baxter made an appearance on our Galaxy, I've not seen it yet. I will go check it out. But if you get Kevin Baxter on a video, I mean, what else do you need, really? I mean,
when's the COG fixture? Come on, our Galaxy people. We're running out of games here.
I don't need cameras in here.
I've
played that game. I've played that game. No, so that's where we sit. So the Galaxy get the 3-1 victory. This pushes them into that almost clinching spot that we talked about. We said the LA Galaxy needs 7 points from the final 3 games. They now have 3 of it, which means they need 4 points from the final 2 games. That's if LAFC win out. If LAFC drop even a point, which it's hard to drop a point because you can't get 2 points out of a game. So you're going to drop 2 points or you're going to drop 3 points. If any of that happens, that would shrink that number by the amount of points that are dropped. So it is feasible that LAFC, who plays this weekend, could possibly lose that game, and that would mean that the LA Galaxy could possibly clinch even with a tie with Austin there. But the Galaxy looking for that win. 100%, that's where it sits. Let's get to some of the stats from this game, just because I think they're fun to look. By the way, big shout out to Mark Delgado, who talked to us after the game. 100th career appearance across all competitions for the LA Galaxy. That's a big number for a guy who it feels like just got here, but he's been here for a little while now. 100th career appearance for Mark Delgado. So that was a big one.
Well done. And again, he tweeted that he was ready for oxygen after that game. So the players are definitely feeling it. So something to keep an eye out for Saturday. We'll see how they feel.
The LA Galaxy, this one from MLSPR putting out the LA Galaxy 60, technically 61 points. But by defeating the Colorado Rapids tonight, the LA Galaxy have eclipsed 60 points in a season for the first time since 2014, where they had 61 points. And just the third time in the post-shootout era, 67 in 2011. The LA Galaxy have still 6 points available from the final 2 games. At 61 points, they could tie 67 points that happened in 2011. And I don't need to remind you, but 2011 is widely regarded as the best season in LA Galaxy history. It was a Supporters Shield win and an MLS Cup win after winning the Supporters Shield in 2010, where they came up a little bit short in the playoffs there. I still remember that. That was peak
LA Galaxy. I think when you're looking at that's it. And
2009.
so that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
So to see that this team is rivaling those numbers, it's insane every time you bring it up.
It doesn't make sense. Like, I've been looking at the numbers and I'm still sitting there. I'm like, are we sure? But do we feel? And somebody said, but the defense, blah, blah, blah. I'm just tired of, I'm not making excuses for the defense. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem to matter. And that's sort of what I don't know. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's not okay.
Maybe in the playoffs, we'll see. Yeah.
Maybe it's a 2010. Maybe you get bounced in the playoffs and, whole deal. Remember, there's only one team that goes home happy in all this. I will say that if it wasn't for Miami, who could possibly set the points record this season, the LA Galaxy would be first in the league, which, again, is hard to sort of fathom sometimes. Mm-hmm. If we look at team of the match day, you had Ricky Puig making the team of the match day. You had Gabriel Peck on the bench, Tata Martino, and Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi was named as the player of the match day. So that's something. Ricky Puig, by the way, gets beat by Lionel Messi again. Just like little inches. If there's no Messi, again, Ricky Puig probably wins the player of the match. Yeah, he's the player of the match day guy, right? So something to watch there. But the LA Galaxy constantly showing up. What do you see on here? You see a guy like Brad Stuver from Austin in here because
it's in my notes.
Yeah, Austin went out and beat Portland. And Portland outshot them like 700-1. And Austin still won 1-0. Let's look at the scores real quick around the league just so you can understand it. Atlanta lost to Montreal at home. You had Charlotte winning 4-3 over Chicago at home. Orlando 2-1. Orlando keeps playing, keeps coming strong. Orlando, look out. Watch out for them in the playoffs. They could be one of those teams. 2-1 over Philadelphia. You had Red Bulls 4-1 over Toronto. I think there was a red card in that game. 3-2. There was a red card in that game, the Miami game as well. Miami over Columbus. That was the Supporters Shield clinching win. You had Houston 2-1 over New England. I watched some of that game, actually. So got to see a little Dave Romney on one side, a little Dan Steres on the other side.
Let's go. Yeah.
Dave and Dan back on the field together again. Always good to have those two guys anywhere near. And just two great guys. DC freaking United came from 2 goals down in stoppage, I believe, to win this game over Nashville, 4-3 in Nashville. Nashville's had a horrible season, but to do that towards the end is one of those where you probably don't want to come out anytime soon. And
I think this was a Benteke situation where I think he's going to seal the Golden Boot with the amount of goals he's been able to score and being able to make that addition. I think that's going to be his late push. So, DC United, another team, returning to glory, maybe not. Again, look at where they're in the standings. They're sitting outside, but they have those positives where they're making that work.
The Galaxy scores there, and then RSL drawing Minnesota at home. One, RSL, little stop and start here towards the end of the season. They haven't been as dangerous as they were, but Minnesota starting to play well too. So watch out for Minnesota. Watch for RSL. RSL coming back. The LA Galaxy, basically, with that RSL game in there and with the LA Galaxy's win over Colorado, if my math is correct, the LA Galaxy can finish no lower than second in the Western Conference. That's it. They're either going to finish 1 or 2. The only team that can pass them right now is LAFC, okay? So that's there. LAFC, pretty sleepy performance whenever you look at what they were able to do with a St. Louis team that wasn't the best, and the Galaxy got a better St. Louis team earlier in the season
at home,
and they've sort of run out of hope at this point. Although I thought that there were some dangerous moments in there, but I mean, I don't know that they even got a shot on goal. Like, I was watching them play, and I'm like, okay, I don't think they're gonna make it happen. But LAFC scraping by St. Louis, so they got that win. Austin, that was that big surprise over Portland. You had San Jose beating Dallas 3-2. I don't think anybody cares. The big one that sort of jumped everything and jumbled some things around, Vancouver getting smoked at home 3-0 by Seattle. That's one that will show up in the standings now and sort of be like one of those, you're like, oh, this is for real now, Eric, as we look at the standings. LA Galaxy in first, LAFC in second, Seattle in third. That's right. Seattle Sounders. We were waiting for them to wake up.
It feels like we knew this was possible, but I remember they were not, hovering in the wild card round not too long ago. So it seems like this was a crazy push. They're just sleepily getting in there.
Yep, absolutely. So Seattle's in there. RSL in fourth. Again, not convinced with how RSL is playing right now. Houston has been storming up, and you're going to get Houston and Ben Olsen. And hopefully, if you're the LA Galaxy, that game means absolutely nothing because Houston will be pushing hard to try to be wherever they're going to be in this. Colorado in sixth, Vancouver in seventh, Minnesota in eighth. There is only one spot in the Western Conference up for grabs. It is like 99% going to Portland at this point. I think even if Portland has to lose out, Austin has to win out, and then there has to be a goal differential made up of like some ridiculous amount of goals. 18. There's an 18 goal difference between the two. So Portland basically locked in now. Austin will be out, but don't expect Austin to come in and roll over. As far as they're concerned, they can still get in there, right? It's one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar to the situation with the Galaxy and LAFC. I think if they win that game, it would take a very difficult goal differential to put LAFC up front, and so it's not 18 goals. So maybe it's a crazier situation with Austin. I'll say this: with how the Galaxy played against Portland, and knowing that the first round is a 3-game series, I don't like seeing Portland in that wild card spot. Keep Evander away from me. I don't feel comfortable with them hovering around there. So I'm all in on Austin winning out, even though I don't want that for this weekend either. So again, I just don't like the fact that Portland's going to be in the mix. So go Minnesota.
And then what I really don't like, if you're going to go to that to where the matchups are, is if it's the 8-9, then you say you want Minnesota, but then you have to travel to Minnesota, which is a further travel, and you're playing that thing. So remember, best of 3, so you will have one game in Minnesota. You have to go, and then Minnesota's surface is probably better with grass than it is with turf, but Minnesota has a crappy surface sometimes, and so you're like, I don't love that. And if it gets cold, then you're going to be playing in the cold. There's a lot. I don't like any of this if you're really looking at it.
You ready for my hot take for Don Garber here?
Yeah.
As the number 1 seed, and I'm saying this now as a cocky LA Galaxy fan finishing in first place, the number 1 seed should get the bye, and they should get all 3 home games potentially.
Yeah, the wild card team doesn't get a home game.
Squeaking in to 8th or 9th place, and you're getting a wild card game to get in there, I don't think you deserve a home game in the playoffs. Crazy thought, hot take.
It's fine. It is. I'm not going to argue against you. Do you want to know what's nuts? So we talked about it. There is one spot open in the Western Conference. That spot, basically 99% Portland spot, right? So how everything finishes in that group is still up for grabs in terms of, again, the Galaxy can finish no lower than second. So that they're in 1 or 2. That means LAFC, the best they can do is 1 or 2. I think they're sort of almost in the same, although Seattle could jump up and grab them, like if they lose, right? So they still have things to worry about. Galaxy can't finish any lower than second. And so, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. It's the whole deal. I was trying to get ChatGPT to do some stuff for me today. And so I was really really arguing with it about MLS stats and everything. And one of the questions I asked it is, when teams that have won MLS Cup, what was their average position in the conference whenever they did it? And it was basically like 2 or 3 was sort of in that. It was like 2.3 or 2.4 somewhere was the average position in there. So those top 3 teams really do have a good chance, but it's hard to win the Western Conference and then also win an MLS Cup. But it's just in general hard to win an MLS Cup. So I don't know that I put anything. But having said that, there's only one spot over here available in the Western Conference for the rest of the playoffs, and then everybody else is basically eliminated. Dallas gone, St. Louis gone, Kansas City gone, San Jose gone. Go over and look at the freaking Eastern Conference. And everybody talked about how good the Eastern Conference is. And right now, I would say that Miami is a good team and Columbus is a good team. Cincinnati is making me question everything recently. I have no idea. Orlando's coming on strong, so I actually like Orlando, but I can't get behind New York City. I can't get behind the Red Bulls. Charlotte is an enigma to me. I don't think the Eastern Conference is as loaded as we thought it was, or certainly down the stretch, I don't trust them. But Montreal, Toronto, Philadelphia, DC, Atlanta, Nashville, and New England are technically all still alive in the playoffs. Like for a playoff position, that's nuts. Only one team in the Eastern Conference has been eliminated, Chicago. That is it.
And then who have the Galaxy, who's one of their, 7 losses? It's to Chicago. So
yeah, 100%.
It's kind of crazy the way that works out. I'll say this about Cincinnati, because I'm with you. Last year with the Shield winners, and you're worried about them and where they were going to land at the beginning of the season. They were dominating some teams. It's similar to Philadelphia. A couple seasons ago, everyone was saying, Jim Curtin in Philadelphia, they were the team to watch. They're up next. And now the window, it feels like, is closed, and they may need to look at some other options. Cincinnati feels like they had the small window, and then now it seems to be dwindling. Maybe they're not who we thought they were. And so that just goes to show how precious these moments are, that there's no guarantee that the Galaxy next season are going to return all these players and everything's going to work out. So it's about going all in with the players that you have now. So just
right now,
that's something to consider when you look at where Philadelphia is in the standings. You look at, how Cincinnati is faltering. I'm not going to fault Columbus too much for falling against Miami, a Miami team that is pretty solid and that seems to have a 12th player in a referee uniform. So that just makes things a little bit trickier. So I'm not counting out Columbus yet. They're still pretty formidable, but I think you do give Miami the edge, which is fair.
Well, and I've been wanting to give Columbus the edge, right? And I'm sort of like, to me, it's been Columbus. And I'm like, that wasn't a good game against Miami, right? It's one of those, you're like, okay, all right, I see where you're going with that. Just looking again at the standings and everything there. Well, let's go quickly through some of the stats and everything else that we have. And remember, there's a lot of charts here that I don't spend like a ton of time worried about. But in general, there's just some that we can pay attention to. Again, 81.5% in terms of availability for designated players and total available minutes. So far off the chart from anything that I have captured, it is ridiculous. And because of that, I think that's one of the reasons the LA Galaxy have been so outstanding. So you can't say, if you get your designated players on the field, by the way, Will Kuntz told me this at the beginning of the season, need to have guys play, right? It's like, duh, but it's one of those,
and contribute,
yeah, it's one of those. Just in terms of the point percentage, the Galaxy have won 56.3% of their total games, lost 21.9%, and a draw or better 78.1% of the total time. That 78.1 is way high up there whenever you look at it. 56.3% right now is amongst the highest. 2002 had 57.1, and then you had 55.9 in 2011. So the winning percentage right now is pretty impressive, but with 2 games left, if you win both of those, you will basically have the highest winning percentage in LA Galaxy history, which would be one of those crazy ones to look at. Again, the 19 wins is something that we're sort of following, because 2011 had 19 wins, 18 wins in 2010. The LA Galaxy just can get up there and pass for some of these these last ones that you're looking at. I mean, look at that: 18 wins, 7 losses, 7 draws. That's pretty impressive whenever you look at what the Galaxy have been able to do so far this year. Home points. They have a chance. If they win on Saturday, they will have the most home points they've ever had at home, and that's across crazy. Anything. That would put them at 42, and then they had 41 in 2011. So
yeah, all the people who were shouting for the digs to become a fortress again. We're here, folks. We made it. We did it. We did it, Joe.
Yeah, it is 100% there. I don't know how it's going to look whenever you look at points per game, because they had, in 2002, they basically had 2.5 points per game at home. They're at 2.44. I would imagine it would get pretty close to the 2.5 if the Galaxy should win on Saturday. Certainly something to watch. But again, one of those things. 22 points on the road for the LA Galaxy. That's nothing to laugh at or to sneeze at. They had, 24, 23, 22. They had 22 points in 2022. They had 19 points in 2021. They are 10 points better on the road this year than they were last year. So again, just something to sort of follow as you go about. And 1.36 points per game on the road right now is above average, which is about 1.18 somewhere in there. So that's something to watch. Last couple charts for me, and then we will close this out and get you ready for that Austin game. 61 points right now through 32 games. Only 2011 was better in the modern era. 68 points in 1998. That was still in the shootout era. 64 points in 2011 through these 32 games. So Galaxy have a chance to still get up there and possibly beat some of those records that they have for points in that era as well. Is there anything else? This is just an interesting one. If you want to see how consistent the LA Galaxy have been throughout the season, this is average position on the table, or basically the table position per game week for the LA Galaxy, and only the LA Galaxy been near the top for almost the entire season. I think the lowest they got in the Western Conference this year, outside of like the very first game where they drew and they were in 8th.
I was gonna say, with alphabetical order is probably what put them there.
Yeah, exactly. Was 5th. 5th in the Western Conference, was as low as the LA Galaxy were all year.
This is a graph that has terrified us in years past.
Right.
When MLS shows the race to the playoffs or race to decision day, this is the up and down of the Galaxy, and usually the downward trend is pretty terrifying. But to see where they're, to see it just hanging out towards the top, not an exciting graph because there's not a lot of troughs and valleys there. It's just pretty consistent at the top, which is, it's cool when you see it that way.
It's been an easy year for me to track it. -1, -2. I do all of these in minuses, right? Because they have to invert the graph in order to make it. So it's -1, -2, -1, -2, -1, -3, -1, -2, right? It was one of those. So going through all that. So that's what I got for charts and graphs and all that fun stuff. Are you ready to talk about Austin now? Because one, it's getting late. And
I was going to say, we were ready to talk about Austin 14 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. By the way, Adam reminding us, $2 super chat, that 2 former G's returning, Hector Jimenez and Giassi Zardes. Can't pass up on Giassi Zardes. Man is
legends.
Man, always a legend. The best right back the LA Galaxy have ever had, Giassi Zardes.
Never going to live that down.
Nope, never. Guy. And then Adam, $5 super chat as well. Josh, I appreciate it. You just answered my question from Monday about what's the highest points Galaxy has ever had at home. There it is. So you have all that information for you. The LA Galaxy coming up, facing off against Austin FC. The LA Galaxy 18-7-7, Austin 10-13-9. This game 7:30 p.m., 7:40 p.m. is your kickoff time on MLS Season Pass. If we go back and look at these two teams and how they've met, they've faced each other 7 times total. The LA Galaxy with 4 wins, Austin with 2 wins and 1 draw in there. Earlier this year, it was one of the LA Galaxy's losses, a 2-0 loss to Austin. I believe no Ricky Puig. Was that a no Ricky Puig game, or they were missing somebody? Oh,
something happened.
It was a Miguel Berry start. I think it was a
Miguel
Berry
start. I think Jovic was out.
Yep. So 2-0 loss to the LA Galaxy, to Austin FC. Austin, they're a somewhat high-pressure team that likes to counter and do a whole bunch of stuff. I think their average possession is around 47%, so just a little under half. So they can play with the ball a little bit. Josh Wolf probably on the hot seat as we close out the season and everything that's going on, and likely to miss the playoffs. The Galaxy beat Austin on Saturday. I believe that eliminates Austin from the playoffs.
And I think that might eliminate Josh Wolf from a head coaching position as well. I think if that officially knocks him out, I think his time has kind of run its course. Shout out to the Austin fans for at least being part of the discourse on Twitter, because for whatever reason, I can't get away from it. You see a lot of the Austin stuff going around, and you can tell that the fan base is not happy with the direction that the club is going. So, a big game for them in that regard, but it's also, you think about the Galaxy this season and the Bizarro Galaxy and everything going the opposite. And so when you take fan appreciation night into account to it, and the dread that brought, now having this being a positive. And I think with Austin coming in, I don't want to say that they're ripe for the picking, but I there is something about beating the teams you're supposed to beat.
Right.
I think with the struggles that they had away at Austin, now they're coming to your home turf, finishing the season being undefeated at Dignity Health Sports Park. I think, they can put them away and kind of put them out of their misery officially.
It feels that way. It certainly feels that way. Now, remember, we talked about it. Austin getting a surprise win up in Portland, 1-0. I believe they scored at the end of the first half and then was sort of able to hold on for the rest of them. And Portland just peppered the goal. That was why Brad Stuver was up there as the goalkeeper and on team of the match day, because he had a whole bunch of saves, kept them alive. And he is one of those goalkeepers that you sort of have to watch out for, Eric. He is capable of just shutting down a goal. Yep. So something to watch. And John McCarthy on the other side had one really huge save for the LA Galaxy and had several questionable distributions early in that first half where you were looking at like
the little shaky. It was the John McCarthy of old. So hopefully he's got those out of his system.
What do you see from the Austin team? What are you expecting from guys like Driussi and Rubio and Perea? And they have some good players.
Yeah, it's not nobody's. I always go back, who's going to scare me? To me, the Yadier O'Brien, again, I always want to call him O'Brien.
Yes.
He doesn't quite look too Irish in that picture. But he's someone who, made the Galaxy pay, I think, when they went away to Austin. He's someone who leads their team in goals. And Alex Ring is someone who leads their team in assists. I don't know if he's going to be available. I don't think he was in the starting lineup in that Portland game. Driussi is the name that pops out, but to me, he hasn't been that MVP caliber player that maybe he was a season or 2 seasons ago. So he doesn't scare me as much. But someone, you mentioned Pereira as someone who's a little feisty, can get in there. When you talk about Ricky Puig, drawing fouls and drawing some of that contact, I could see that being a situation where maybe Pereira goes in to be the Puig stopper. Right. And you could see, is this where the cards are going to come out? Is this where Puig is going to be able to, dance around him and make those things happen? So I'm looking at Pereira. I'm looking at O'Brien. And then, of course, I know, Giossi doesn't get a lot of the shine, but whenever he's going to be back in town, I think hopefully the fans give him a good ovation there and, show the appreciation for his time at the Galaxy. He's a fan favorite, one of my personal favorite players when he was here with his time with the Galaxy. One of my daughter's favorite players, always stood out. So, shout out to Giossi. We'll see if he can come and, dream situation. We'll talk about predictions a little bit later, but maybe give him a little consolation goal, but we managed to handle our business and take care of everything else.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting night for sure. I'm just sort of wondering how this game really. It feels like it should be a game where the LA Galaxy have everything to play for. There's going to be a lot of. Plus the emotion. I mean, this is one where I'd be very surprised if the Galaxy don't come out on fire, because it feels like they're going to have a lot of energy in this. And I think that as this game goes on, and certainly I think Austin is one of those, I think this is game 3 of 3 for them. This is only game 2 of 2, even though it's short for the LA Galaxy. They didn't play over the weekend. That is a bonus. That's why I don't expect much rotation. I think everybody's going to be okay on that.
And a double away game, away at Portland, away at the Galaxy. Yep. So that's something, not sleeping in their own beds. I don't know if they went back to Austin. I imagine they didn't.
Right.
So it's just one of those things to consider as well.
D ratings.
D ratings.
Talk about it. Let's go.
The LA Galaxy, massive favorites according to D ratings. 66.8% chance to win, 19.8% chance to draw, and Austin FC only getting a 13.3% chance to win. So again, if you're looking at this games, I'm talking about games you're supposed to win. Right. The Galaxy are huge favorites. They're favored in Vegas. You look at the money line sitting there. The best line right now has Austin at plus 425. So again, if you feel like Austin's going to get it done, you could win big. But again, I feel like the Galaxy are going to do it. So if you want to bet on that, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra with the Galaxy at minus 195. So even a draw is at plus 400. So when you look at how Vegas is seeing it, you look at how D ratings is looking at it, this is a game the Galaxy are supposed to win. Is it a trap game? Maybe, with how good they looked against Colorado, but I'm with you. I think they come out on fire. When you look at D ratings, I don't know if you have the screenshot for it. They do give some score props, and it's usually a 5x5 grid where they say, what's the possibility of, the Galaxy scoring 4 goals and then Austin FC scoring 5 goals. And that's usually the way it works when you play the other team. Here, they only have Austin's chart go to 3 goals. So the percentages don't even show the possibility of Austin getting beyond 3 goals. Even in the games, as crazy as it sounds, it usually shows that 5x5 graph. So I think that tells you all you need to know about the Galaxy being the favorites in this game, opportunity to clinch first place in the West, put LAFC out of their reach, win at home for your fan appreciation night and really get that momentum going and make the decision day game essentially meaningless. So I think they have everything to play for in this game.
Yeah.
And D-rating sees it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sort of in that same camp. The big deal is, staying undefeated at home. Brenda pointing that out. It's fan appreciation night. They have to win to break the curse. I thought I had my fan appreciation graph up here, but basically only one win since 2013. That one win came in 2017, just to keep an idea of where the LA Galaxy are at for fan appreciation night. It's about time they start riding that ship, right? This is the time. This is where you want them to be. So I agree.
I was going to say the same thing. It's time. We're moving beyond the people are mentioning PTSD all the time and I still feel all these different emotions, with how they were on the standings and decision day. I think we've reached a point in this Galaxy team is giving me confidence to say they're supposed to win this game. Let's go out and win that game.
It's if we're getting to predictions guaranteed to be wrong, it's 3-1 game for me. I still feel like the Galaxy can always give up a goal, and so I don't think I'm ever going to predict. By the way, you want to have a statement is shut out Austin, win a game 2 or 3-0 and shut them out, and then all of a sudden everybody starts to sit there and say, well, maybe the Galaxy can play defense, because the set piece defending against Colorado was superb, and they had 2,500 chances to score in that, and I don't know that there was maybe one where something broke down and Colorado didn't get ahead on. So for me, this is a 3-1 victory for the LA Galaxy, and I expect that they are going to come out just on fire. I expect the goals to really be flowing. This is one of those where you wanted to know if the Galaxy could run up a score. This might be a game where they could run up a score. That's scary to say. Scary looking at how favored they are. 86% chance to get a draw or better. That's like almost 87% chance to get a draw or better. That's nuts. But the Galaxy should win this game. And if they don't, man, talk about a crisis. Talk about a crisis of everything that you're going right into the playoffs. Gotta love it. I mean, no, it's not a must-win game. I'm not sitting there. I'm not going to play that game.
There's still games to be played and other things that can happen. And second place isn't the worst thing in the world.
Right.
So I see what you're saying. But it would be an interesting. We had it at the palms of our hands. And we let it slip away.
100%. What's your prediction? What do you got?
Again, I love a blowout. I love a statement game. I'm with you that I don't think the Galaxy can get out of here with a clean sheet, but I think they do explode all over Austin FC. So I think a 5-1 win with a Giassi's Artes consolation goal.
Okay, that's fine. By the way, COG After Dark. Just wanted to say that. Before we go, let's look at the schedule for the upcoming games. Toronto-Miami, a game that will have zero effect on the LA Galaxy. Atlanta hosting New York Red Bulls. Charlotte hosting Montreal. You have Cincinnati hosting Orlando. You have Columbus hosting. This feels like, weren't these games just played? Is this schedule correct?
Did you pull up the wrong schedule?
No, it says on Saturday, October 5th. It just feels like I just saw these.
Home and home? It wouldn't surprise me if MLS scheduled
crazy games going on.
Yeah, a Wednesday, Saturday with the same team.
It's just me. I think I've looked at this schedule before. It's fine. Columbus hosting Philadelphia. You have New England hosting DC United. There's going to be a lot of teams eliminated in the Eastern Conference this weekend, I have a feeling. New England hosting DC United. You have Vancouver hosting Minnesota. That will be one to watch. 4:30 p.m. That's a good one. You have Kansas City rematch with LAFC in the U.S. Open Cup game where Sporting KC looked very good for a lot of that game. And then LAFC eventually blew that one out. I think it was 3-1 was the final on that, if I remember correctly. So that's a grudge match. The awesome thing about that, if you're an LA Galaxy fan, that game happening 2 hours before the LA Galaxy's game, which means that you will know there's a possibility to clinch with a win. All right. So Sporting Kansas City hosting LAFC. You have St. Louis hosting Houston. That's one to watch just because you want to watch where Houston sits. Colorado hosting Seattle. Seattle in Colorado. Colorado coming off of 2 losses. That's going to be and by the way, Colorado with a chance to probably jump back up against Seattle, right? It'll be one of those, keep Seattle from getting points, jump up over them, get back out of 6th, climb back in. Then that could move Seattle back down. The LA Galaxy hosting Austin. And then you have San Jose hosting Real Salt Lake. The games the next day, Portland hosting Dallas in that Western Conference. So that's going to happen on 10-6, just to watch that one as you go. So if you want to watch where Portland is, a lot of watching. You're going to be scoreboard watching the LA Galaxy. You're going to be scoreboard watching. So it should be a lot of fun. So, all right. Anything else that we need to touch on? Oh, we do still have one more thing.
I was going to say, I have a shout out to make, and maybe it's the same thing that we're going on the wavelength. We've already go 90 minutes. What's not 91 minutes? So again, I want to give a shout out to our boy Nelson with Creative Retail. He was, gave us an exclusive image to share. So again, all the incentive to go back and, get the views over here on our YouTube page. If you wanted to see an exclusive hat that's going to be available. So LA Galaxy times Swarm, or by and Swarm, a collab that's happening here. They're going to be available exclusively at the LA Galaxy team store starting at 3:30 on Saturday. There's going to be 6 t-shirt designs, 6 hat designs, and 1 scarf. Out of all the collections, I think this is one of the best looking collections that the Galaxy have collabed on this season. And that's saying something because they've had some amazing collaborations. And this is only drop 1. There's going to be more things to drop. So 6 shirts, 6 hats, 1 scarf, and then there's still more to come. So just shout out to Nelson and the Creative Retail team and everything that they're doing. Also getting word that the varsity jackets are available. So I know those were a hot item, I believe, with the Menace collab. So there also will be in store, but there's a very limited supply. So if you're interested, they will be in person at the team store. So get on down to the team store, get there early. 3:30 is when they open. If you want to, get these, especially if you, need a very specific size, if you're like myself, where maybe, the mediums and the smalls aren't going to work out for you. So you may want to get there early. So just kudos to Nelson and the team. They've had a hell of a season, but the truth is the G's are having a good season, and it's, being more noticeable now. But Nelson and the team have been putting out some great work the last seasons too, even when the Galaxy on the field product wasn't there. I think with the new FO and letting them spread their wings and be even more themselves and have more collaborations, they're going even further. But Nelson and his team this isn't the first season that they're, on the scene. I think it's more noticeable now, and they're being out there, but just some great collabs. And I think, they're just some great designs, and shout out to him. Yeah, I can't say it enough. And if you want to see some more sneak peeks, go to the Discord, go to the Creative Retail channel. You can see more things of what it's going to look like. T-shirt looks good. There's some rings out there. The scarf is impeccable. So shout out to Nelson and the team. It's
always great. Always this collaboration with Sworn is going to be an interesting one. Ready to see it. I'm in. Let's get this going. AFJA, I believe, is going to be named Community Partner of the Year for the LA Galaxy coming up this weekend. So that's going on. I heard a rumor that we may get some mini pupusas up in the press box. That's all. Let's go. That's the only reason I need to go. So I'm in. But always great to have Steve and AFJA, and such an amazing organization. I love them to death. I really, truly believe in everything that they do. And so I'm happy that we're sort of in that in that section, in that segment. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. So anything else that we need to get to? I think we're done.
I think we're good. Okay. Yeah, I think we've done it all.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Then as I click buttons and attempt to get back to the screen I was supposed to be in, Eric, why don't you hold on, I have to hit even more buttons. Give it a second. There we go. All right, why don't you tell where they can find you? Let's go.
All right, as always, you can find me on everything at HammerEV9 on Twitter, X, Instagram, all the fun things at HammerEV and the number 9.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter and X at Guesman at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. Make sure you get over there. And of course, we have so many amazing options everywhere that you look. Catamount has a great Substack if you're looking for that. I've tweeted out some links to that. You need to go follow Catamount on the Substack. I think everything's free for the rest of the season, and then next year maybe there'll be a small charge. But yeah, check it out. Catamount on Substack is always great, and still some articles on Corner of the Galaxy there as well. I think that about does it. LA Galaxy taking on Austin FC coming up on Saturday. Last home game, regular season for the LA Galaxy, a chance to remain undefeated and a possible chance at clinching the top spot in the West, or certainly taking another large step in doing so. All right, that about does it for Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.